How's it going, everybody? My name is Rinzler here, back again for another video, and welcome back to my A Song of Ice and Fire Character Origins series. So we're going to be continuing the series today with one of my personal favorite war hero characters, Robert Baratheon, the first of his name. He became the king of Westeros at the beginning of the series, but a lot of people don't know is that he actually had a very interesting life story prior to the first book. Since Robert unfortunately ends up dying in the first book, we don't really get to see much of his past in the books themselves. We have to learn them from other characters' perspectives, like Ned Stark. So, without further ado, let's talk about Robert Baratheon. But before I do that, I'd just like to let you guys know, with a quick reminder, that this is going to be based on Robert Baratheon in the A Song of Ice and Fire book series, and not the Game of Thrones TV show, which is based on the books. So, without further ado, let's discuss Robert Baratheon. Robert Baratheon was born in 262 AC to Cassana Estermont and Steffan Baratheon. He also has two younger brothers named Stannis and Renly Baratheon. His father sent Robert off to be fostered at the Eyrie by Jon Arryn, since Jon Arryn had no children of his own at the time. At the Eyrie, Robert would be raised beside fellow ward Eddard Stark. Robert was so close with Ned Stark when they grew up that he considered him a brother. He was also close with Jon Arryn, who he considered his second father. Robert was knighted in his youth and became crazy strong. He could lift an incredibly heavy warhammer that hardly anyone else could even stir. Robert became an absolute monster of a man, possibly even rivaling the mountain that rides in the current story. And he was capable of crushing armor easily with his warhammer. He competed in a tourney in his birthplace of Storm's End when he was young, just barely losing in the finals to Sir Barristan Selmy of the King's Guard. Robert's father Steffan was tasked by the Mad King, Aerys Targaryen II, to go to Volantis in Essos and find a girl of Valyrian birth for Prince Rhaegar Targaryen to marry, since the Targaryens like to keep their bloodlines pure by marrying exclusively to Valyrian heritage. All they ended up finding was a fool named Patchface, who they purchased and brought back with them. When they came home, they were caught in a storm right off the coast of Storm's End, which killed both of Robert's parents and everybody else on board, with the exception of Patchface himself. Robert was on the balcony when this happened with his brother Stannis alongside him, and they couldn't do anything but watch as their parents died. Robert therefore became the new Lord of Storm's End immediately afterwards. Robert would end up falling in love with Ned's tomboy sister, Lyanna Stark, and he was betrothed to her at a young age because her father approved of the match. Robert loved Lyanna dearly and was very happy with their planned marriage, but everything ended up going wrong during the tourney of Harrenhal. At the tourney of Harrenhal, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen won the jousting tournament and therefore earned the right to crown any woman he wanted as his queen of love and beauty, as was tradition. Everyone expected Rhaegar to obviously crown his own wife, Elia Martell, but instead he shocked everybody by crowning Lyanna Stark. Robert himself was too drunk to be angry at Rhaegar when it happened, but in this incident, in one fell swoop, Rhaegar managed to insult houses Baratheon, Stark, and Martell, as well as shame House Targaryen. Ned Stark often referred to this as the moment that all the smiles died, and that's the perfect description of this scene. Robert would only get mad later on when he'd sobered up. A year after the tourney of Harrenhal, Rhaegar kidnapped Lyanna Stark. Ned and Lyanna's older brother, Brandon Stark, went to King's Landing to try and get Lyanna Stark back from Rhaegar. Instead, the Mad King killed Brandon and his father before ordering the heads of Robert and Ned. Jon Arryn, however, refused to give up his foster children, and instead Robert declared war against the Targaryens, and he was crowned king due to his grandmother being Targaryen in birth. House Grafton, who were Targaryen loyalists, attempted to block Robert from leaving Goldtown in the Vale, so Robert slew Mark Grafton and set sail for Storm's End. Some of his own people remained loyal to the Mad King, so Robert defeated Lords Grandison, Catherine, and fell in the Battle of Summer Hall and won his people's allegiance. Robert, with his path now clear, now left Stannis in charge of Storm's End before heading north to rejoin Jon Arryn and Ned Stark. On the way, however, Robert was nearly defeated in battle by Randyll Tarly and barely managed to escape. He was nearly captured by Hand of the King, John Connington, at Stony Sept, but was timely saved by the Starks and the Tullys. The Tullys came to Robert's side after Ned married Catelyn Tully and Jon Arryn married Lysa Tully. Robert finally met Rhaegar one-on-one at the Battle of the Trident. Robert caved in Rhaegar's breastplate with his warhammer, killing him instantly. Rhaegar's breastplate was encrusted with rubies that went flying into the river when Robert struck him down. The river was therefore nicknamed the Ruby Ford, and people have been looking for rubies in the water ever since. Rhaegar wounded Robert during their fight, and this severely crippled Robert during the remainder of the war, and he was unable to properly battle for the remainder of his own rebellion. Soon after his fight against Rhaegar, he decided to pardon Sir Barristan Selmy of the Kingsguard and allowed him to join his own Kingsguard, despite a lot of his advisors telling him it was just a bad idea. However, this ended up being a great idea, as Barristan never betrayed Robert while he was alive. Tywin Lannister later joined Robert's cause when it became clear that the Baratheons would defeat the Targaryens. Tywin sacked King's Landing on Robert's behalf, ordering Rhaegar's widow, Elia Martell, and her children, Rhaenys and Aegon, to be killed. Jaime Lannister, meanwhile, killed the Mad King, betraying his oath to the Kingsguard, but thus ending the war in the process. The Mad King's younger children, Viserys and Daenerys, were able to escape to Essos, however, with help from Sir Willem Darry. Robert was coronated, and he and Ned got into a fight soon afterwards. Robert ultimately saw nothing wrong with Elia, Rhaenys, and Aegon's deaths, and called them all dragon spawn that needed to die. Ned angrily left to go find Lyanna and Dorne, since Robert, who was too injured for the trip, had to stay behind and begin ruling as king. He named Jon Arryn as his hand of the king. Ned ultimately came back from Dorne with Lyanna's body, discovering that she had died under mysterious circumstances. Ultimately, Ned and Robert were able to make up their friendship through their mutual found grief over Lyanna's death. After the war, Robert grieved heavily over Lyanna's death. He really didn't want to get married again, but since the king needed to have heirs, he reluctantly decided to marry Cersei Lannister to forge a lasting alliance with House Lannister, Tywin in particular. On their wedding night, Robert drunkenly called Cersei Lyanna, and their marriage was loveless after that. He and Cersei had 3 children together, named Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella Baratheon, but in actuality, they were all bastards born of incest between Cersei and her own brother Jaime Lannister. Robert was really disappointed in Joffrey when he grew up, because he was a bully and a coward, and also his mother was so overprotective of Joffrey that she never allowed him to become a page or a squire, which meant that he didn't know how to fight. One time, Joffrey cut open a pregnant cat's stomach to see the kittens inside, and Robert was so shocked and horrified by his actions that he hit Joffrey so hard in the face that he knocked out 2 of his baby teeth. Robert was not a good king. He spent his time instead drinking and whoring while leaving Jon Arryn to rule the 7 kingdoms. Robert spent more time with his bastard children than his quote-unquote legitimate children. Robert had a lot of bastards, but he only ever legally claimed one of his children, his son, Edric Storm, who he had fostered by his brother Stannis at Storm's End. He often gave Edric name day presents, including his own warhammer. Not the warhammer they used in battle, but a new one he had forged for Edric. He also spent a lot of time in the Vale with his bastard daughter Maya Stone, who he would often throw up into the air and catch again. It should be noted that Robert never legally claimed Maya Stone as his bastard daughter, but it's just kind of something that everybody knew about because of how often Robert would visit her when she was young, and as she grew up as well. Robert left Westeros to his hand of the king Jon Arryn while he was drinking, whoring, grieving Lyanna's death, hunting boar, and spending time with his bastard children. Robert wanted to bring Maya Stone to King's Landing, but Cersei subtly threatened to hurt Maya Stone if she came to King's Landing, so Robert became so angry at Cersei that he actually slapped her. Robert later put down King Baelon Greyjoy during the Greyjoy Rebellion and forced a surrender out of him. When Jon Arryn dies, Robert traveled north to Winterfell with his wife and children to ask Ned to replace Jon as Hand of the King. Ned reluctantly accepts. Robert visits Lyanna's tomb before leaving for King's Landing. On the way back, Joffrey got into a fight with Ned's daughter Arya, which resulted in her direwolf Nymeria attacking him. Cersei demanded justice, so after Robert belittled Joffrey for being disarmed by a little 9-year-old girl, he agrees to have Nymeria executed, though he doesn't want to. However, since Arya scared Nymeria off by throwing rocks at her, Cersei convinces Robert to have Sansa Stark's direwolf lady executed in her place. Robert is really reluctant to let this go, but he really also wants there to be peace between his family and the Starks, and so he reluctantly agrees for this execution to happen. Robert hosts a tourney upon returning to King's Landing to celebrate Ned's ascension to being Hand of the King, but soon after, the pair end up having another falling out after he decides to send assassins to kill Daenerys Targaryen after she's impregnated by Khal Drogo and Essos. Ned argues this idea and nearly quits being Hand of the King. Robert goes on a boar hunt to clear his head, where his squire Lancel Lannister poisons his wine on Cersei's behalf. This impairs Robert's senses enough for a boar to fatally wound him, though he does manage to kill the boar before he dies. On Robert's deathbed, he decrees that Ned will become King Regent until Joffrey comes of age. Ned doesn't have the heart to tell Robert about what he's discovered about Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen's true parentage, and simply allows him to die thinking that there is real children, even though they're not. Quote by Robert Baratheon, "I swear to you, I was never so alive as when I was winning this throne, or so dead as now that I've won it." Robert Baratheon's life was a tragic one. Even though he was an incredibly strong and valiant war hero and an incredibly fun person to be around in a bar, he was secretly extremely depressed after Lyanna's death, and he was probably equally depressed after Jon Arryn died. He had to watch his parents die right in front of him. He didn't get along well with his brother Stannis, and he just didn't like being king all that much at all. He often let things be run by Jon Arryn because he was just too busy trying to forget about his past to even focus on his future at all. It's a miracle that Robert didn't die sooner from a heart attack because this guy drank a lot. Ultimately, it is really sad that Robert Baratheon let himself go so much after becoming king, but it's understandable considering how tragic his life story actually was. When he was young, Robert was legitimately a monster of a man who is capable of probably matching the mountain that rides in single combat. So it is a bit of a shame to see how much he packed on weight from drinking and how much his life plummeted. But you could tell that despite this, and despite his general carelessness for a lot of important things in the world, he did legitimately care about his bastard children, Edric Storm and Maya Stone, and he really just wanted the best for them. And it's also clear that he really loved Lyanna Stark, he loved Ned Stark, and he loved Jon Arryn. This was a man that was very battle-hardened from war and who had such a tragic life that you can't help but feel bad for him. This guy could have been a real big family man, but tragedy really did strike at the worst time. So that is the life of Robert Baratheon, and in my opinion, this guy deserved to live throughout the series even more because he had a lot more to do, but he just was not very politically savvy. He didn't care for the politics of Westeros, and that's probably what got him killed. He was a great war hero, but he just didn't know what to do when he wasn't fighting except drink and whore and hunt. So, quite frankly, it's not that surprising that Robert died, but it's still very tragic that he did die. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up. Share this video with all your friends and family on all of your various social media accounts. Remember to tell me in the comments down below what I did and didn't do good in this video, and I'll see all you dudes and chicks in the next video.